God's second best. And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter, so he made it again another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to make it. Jeremiah chapter 18, verse 4. A certain tree I once knew well, growing tall and straight on a windy height, had its top broken off in a gale, and as I passed that way I said, "Wounded and half dead, that tree is done." But as spring followed spring, I found that it was not so. The tiny green shoots round where the break had been grew thicker and stronger year by year, till, by and by, a stranger could hardly have told that it had been broken. True, it was not the tree it had been, but it was big and high and leafy as before. So I learned that when the best is gone forever, nature has a second best in store, and with marvelous patience brings it out of her treasury. In the potter's house, Jeremiah saw a vessel spoiled in the workman's hands through some flaw in the stuff, reshaped and molded into another form, the best that could be made with such clay. In such a homely school was the prophet taught a new hope for men. Blindly and perversely do they squander and spoil the gift of God. Yet is their case not hopeless if they but leave themselves penitently to his merciful repairing? God will make of them still vessels unto honor. Though innocence be gone, God's grace can still make a saint. Jesus is this same eternal Word of God, with hands and feet and a loving human heart. Drawn by his compassion, sinners, men and women who knew themselves failures, came to him and went away convinced that even for them life still held blessed possibilities. Jesus persuaded men that God was very willing, however marred their past had been, to help and heal them still. He never belittled failure. He never spoke lightly of sin. Yet he is our surety for the blessed hope there is for spoiled lives in the patient hands of God. Sometimes we claim God's promises on the heights and forget that they hold in the valleys. So I want to bring the thought of our Father's loving resourcefulness, to which nature and prophecy and Christ have borne witness, down to homely levels. I should like to speak of God's great storehouse of reserved blessing to those who feel that they are growing old. To the man who fears that, with his youth, he has left behind him everything worth having, I want to say that God has other gifts still. Youth does not exhaust our Father's bounty. God has a gracious second best for those who are aging wisely. We are all aging, but some are growing towards hope and faith and a deeper need and a deeper experience of God. And that is not, in any sad sense, to grow old. The spirit that is in living touch with God's Spirit does not age like the body, for God never grows old. What if the hair be white then? Is it not written, "They shall walk with him in white because they are worthy"? I am often tempted, too, though in this I trespass, I fear, upon the domain of my brother of medicine, to speak about God's second best to those whose range of living has had to be narrowed, to those who, though not seriously ill, have had to surrender many of the liberties and privileges of health. Even so, my brother, life need not be wholly sad or bitter. Not a little of the world's best work is done by its courageous invalids. God has his gift of quiet happiness even for those who have had to take a smaller house. Reckon up all you have left still, and believe that God is very willing to help you to the blessings which he keeps for his lame and hindered children. That there are such is quite certain, and some whom you know have found them. But the great comfort of this doctrine is for those who have failed. Now, there are failures and failures. One may fail and try again and get what he aimed for at the first, but there is a failure that is final, that shuts the door and turns the seeker down some other way to bear the stigma, unsuccessful. Yes, but how? Embittered? Hopeless? Surely not, with this word of God to encourage us. Even for the failures, God has a second best. There are many who have found the blessing that lies beyond failure. Like the oyster, they have healed their hurt with a pearl. For, often and often, this second best of God's seems richer and more precious than what was lost. As a matter of fact, second best is a purely human measurement. On God's scale, it is really better still. Oliver Goldsmith failed in his examination for the unambitious post of hospital mate. But out of that failure came a great gain to English literature. The second best, in God's providence, for Goldsmith and for us was The Vicar of Wakefield. There is, in truth, no longer or more interesting chapter in the history of human effort than that which tells of the triumphs and successes that have been won out of failure. Let no one who counts himself a failure regard that as the end of the story. There is a wonderful second best calling for him in God's keeping, if he gets up to try again. Though deep in mire, wring not your hands and weep. God lends his arm to all who say, I can. No shame-faced outcast ever sank so deep, but he may rise and be again a man.